Hey y'all, welcome back. Today we're checking out the Great British Class System Explained.
This video is brought to you by Squarespace.
I have friends who are aristocrats, I have friends who are upper class, I have friends who are, working class, but not working class. But
Oh, well, not working
inside
class.
of every single British person on Earth is a radar that allows us to detect someone's class. You can listen to all the drill music you like, you can wear all the Adidas you want, but I know deep down that you shop at Waitrose.
Hunter Barrington Chessington, I hate to inform you that you are indeed white.
But in 2024, things are different. The upper class saw a 20% rise in billionaires post-pandemic, whilst the home-owning middle class is shrinking. So today we're going to explore the past and the future of the Great British Class System.
Yeah, that's interesting. Call for wealth tax as UK billionaire numbers are up by 20% since pandemic. Suddenly explosion of billionaire wealth at the expense of the rest of society is grossly unjust. Wow, I didn't know this was happening. So, I feel like I'm sure I've reacted to a video about the British class system before, but it's been a while, and I've filmed over 500 reaction videos at this point, and I think I've posted almost 500. I film more than I post because some of them don't make the cut. So forgive me if this is a repeat. I don't think it is, but forgive me, please, for everything. This is interesting. It's changing. Something I have learned from doing these reaction videos is that the class system in Britain is much more rigid than in the States.
This dumbing down, this desire of the champagne socialists to destroy. I wouldn't mind shooting all them.
That's going too far.
No, it's not. Don't go far enough.
I'm sorry, what did this man say?
This dumbing down, this desire of the champagne socialists to destroy. I wouldn't mind shooting all them.
That's going too far.
No, it's not. Don't go far enough.
Another rich guy wanting to kill poor people. Sir, if you shot all of them, who's going to bring you tea? Who's going to clean your house? Who's going to cook your food? Is this going to make me angry?
Untouchables, considered impure and unclean, are unworthy to belong to any caste. By tradition, they are the lowliest of the low.
Look, social class has always been a thing. There's always been the haves and the have-nots. In India, for instance, if you're a member of the Dalit, you are so low, your class is so low that you literally can't use the same cutlery as people above you. But in some nations, it's much less pronounced, like in Scandinavian nations. But the British class system is revered, it's well known. And you might be wondering, where exactly did it come from? This requires us going all the way back to the Saxon era.
He said it's revered. Doesn't that mean people like it? I thought people didn't like it. Let's look up the definition of revered. Revered. Feel deep respect or admiration for. I don't know if it's revered. We're all aware of it, but I don't think we revere it, do we? I don't. I think it's up. Anyway.
But the British class system is revered, it's well known. And you might be wondering, where exactly did it come from? This requires us going all the way back to the Saxon era. There was like the king of England, there was nobles, and there was freemans and serfs. So we had a class system, but it was just a little bit chiller. You know, it was simplified, it was relaxed. But then Britain got invaded.
I'm here with William the Conqueror, King of England.
As you all know, the French are the worst people on earth, but this fact has its origins all the way back in 1066. Basically, you had this boy called William the Conqueror. He came over from France with a group called the Normans. They brought loads of them over, the server started lagging, we were getting low FPS, and basically they got lucky and kind of took over England. But Willie, he had a new system and a new way of running society, and that was called feudalism.
Feudalism.
Pretty much it was exactly the same as how the world was being run, but it was French, so it was more sophisticated. As Willie took over England, he gave all of the top knights, all of the boys by his side, the ownership of big plots of land. I don't know how they divvied it out. I don't know who got unlucky and became the Lord of Luton, but this would be the beginning of what was later known as the British aristocracy.
Charles Anthony Peter Duncombe, 6th Baron Feversham, age 23.
Being an aristocrat is said to be a state of mind. A lord
State
is no
of
different from
mind.
anybody else. He is one of God's children.
To give you some perspective, if you're a Norman aristocrat, you might live in Windsor Castle or something like this. It was like wooden forts surrounded by stone. They weren't as beautiful as they'd later become. They were eating loads of food. They were just chilling all day with the bros, passing laws, speaking French. And it was a massive vibe. And then you had the Anglo-Saxons. Them boys just mud huts made of straw and horse shit, manual labour, work in the field and speaking English. Yikes. And to be honest, it kind of looked like it was going to stay like that forever. That was until the Black Death.
We're expecting severe outbreaks.
Hang on, y'all. I feel the urge to cry. I just want to let it pass over. Why am I sad? Why is this making me sad? I don't know. I'm having an irrational wave of depression right now. Why is this happening? I don't have any reason to be sad. I don't think this video just did it. It's not that sad. This is a long time ago. Okay. It's past. I still feel sad though. Okay.
Was until the Black Death.
We're expecting severe outbreaks of the plague this year. Sweeping over on ships from Europe, it's expected to spread right across England.
Between 1346 and 1353, roughly half of the European population were decimated. Obviously, it completely obliterated most of the working class. They were living in unsanitary conditions anyway.
Towns and cities will be the worst affected, with people dying in vast numbers. Here, and indeed here.
But this was probably the best thing that ever happened to them. And not just because it gave them the sweet release of death, but mainly because it upped their labour value.
Right. Oh, I've heard this before. Yes. Right. There was a labor shortage, so the wages went up. Right.
Bazza looks around and realises, hang on a fucking second. With all these boys gone, I suppose I can start asking for a bit more money. So basically, after the Black Death, life started to kind of improve for the working class. So your boy King Edward III, he was starting to notice that the peasants had a few less holes in their shoes. And he went, hold on, what the bloody hell is happening? So he passed some laws to basically say, look, you can't pay the peasants more money. We're going to return wages back to how they were pre-plague. And that went down like a lead balloon. Before we go any further with this video, I want to give a massive shout out to today's sponsor, Squarespace. Squarespace is the #1 platform for building your own beautiful website.
Y'all be sure to go to Squarespace and buy a website.
Anyway, back to the video.
Oh, yeah. Great show.
I'll be honest, the Peasants' Revolt was a bit shit, you know. It got clamped down pretty quickly. The king didn't get beheaded. Nothing exciting happened. But, and you'll notice that this is a common theme, it did slowly and passively cause some change in British society. And so from here, we would get the first release of a brand new class DLC, and that was the Merchant class.
Stephen Merchant. Brilliant.
One panda bananas. Excuse me, sweetheart. Can I interest you in a little sniff on these onions? A merchant, simply put, is someone who makes money selling the products of someone's labour. But now as feudalism was coming to an end and the British Empire was starting to develop, we would start to see international trade routes appear, giving us some access to some dope shit. And a very particular type of working class Del Boy saw this as a fucking opportunity.
But for just £1.50, you can invest in one of these super deluxe trimming combs.
Hashtag be your own boss, hashtag rise and grind, hashtag hustle culture. This merchant class was raking in a lot of money. And some of these merchants would have come from very poor working class backgrounds. They were self-made. They were able to rise up through society's class structure.
Why am I'm like, I'm sad. Why am I so sad? Why am I about to cry?
Via this new system called
capitalism, God's way of determining who is smart and who is poor.
These lads, I'm talking about Mickey the New Money Merchant, their culture, like their lifestyle was hilarious. And we can see that through this term, nouveau riche. This word, it translates from French, obviously, and it means new money.
And that's where it's from?
Old money. Is old money better than new money?
Oh, definitely.
Because
you've only just got money. We've had it for ages.
It's an insult, basically, for when a person from a very poor background quickly gets money and then they try and emulate the lives of the upper class.
Right.
So as we moved into the industrial era and these new money bros were coming along, they would start doing things like building massive, grand, aristocratic mansions. They would have these big, elaborate parties. They would buy art that they probably don't even know the name of the artist. Their homes would be super over-decorated, furnishings, hangings, you know, all the bells and whistles.
Yeah,
The
okay.
problem was that it lacked taste. It lacked sophistication. It was garish. They didn't know what they were doing. They just had a load of money and thought this is what you're meant to do with it.
What's up? My name is Chase, and I'm the youngest flexer in the game. Hey, get a zoom in on that.
And so in this period, there was a very weird power dynamic whereby a lot of these new money merchants, that sounds like a boy band, were actually becoming wealthier than the aristocrats.
I get a feeling of superiority over them. I get a feeling of inferiority from him, but a feeling of superiority over him. I get a pain in the back of my neck.
It's like the new money bros were like trying to marry into aristocracy. They were trying to get titles, and they would even purchase titles like knighthoods, baronetcies, and some would actually buy the estates, the land, off of the aristocrats. And so you might be there thinking, hang on a second, why? Why are the aristocrats selling all their estates? Why are they selling these titles? Well, that's because some of the aristocrats were starting to go broke.
They once ruled their fiefdoms, lording it over the commoners from their grand estates. Now, some of them, like Francis Fulford, can barely keep a roof over their heads.
F*** you, Fulford. F*** you, Fulford. Francis Fulford. F*** you, Francis Fulford. I hope he's broke.
For words, I had an ancestor who pissed the money up against the wall.
So look, if there's one important thing you need to know about aristocrats,
He had an ancestor who pissed the money up against the wall. That's a great saying.
Who pissed the money up against the wall.
So look, if there's one important thing you need to know about aristocrats, that is they don't work. They don't do work. Work? No.
What do they do?
And that is what makes them better than all of us. What an aristocrat fundamentally does is own land that they inherited from birth and pass laws that tell everyone what to do. Simple. But as this merchant class, which started to become called the middle class, as this started to grow, they challenged the power of the aristocrats. Slowly, they would gain political power. One of the most important moments I think we can look at is when they repealed the corn laws. This was a law that put high tariffs on foreign imported corn. So basically, in favor of the aristocrats that owned estates, that had large farms and peasants working on it, making corn. When that protectionist law went, they were now in direct competition with the capitalists. And the capitalists had an advantage because they actually worked. I look at this moment as a key turning point in the power dynamic between the middle class, the merchants, and the aristocracy. And we would actually see a lot of the more ardent anti-work aristocrats going broke and having to sell their estates.
I'm sad. Why am I so sad? This is making me sad. You know what it is? I woke up this morning. You know how whenever you wake up, but you were sort of having a dream, and so whenever you finally fully wake up, you remember your dream? I had a dream that I got pickpocketed, and the cops came, and they just let the guy go, and I felt violated and taken advantage of. And this is leaning into that money stuff.
The more ardent anti-work aristocrats going broke and having to sell their estates.
I'm sorry, what did that Fox News Chiron say? Anti-work Reddit thread has 1.6 million members. Wow.
More ardent anti-work aristocrats going broke and having to sell their estates.
Francis Fulford inherited this fortified mansion over 40 years ago, but over the years the house has fallen further and further into disrepair.
Screw that guy.
And finally, the money has run out.
Landowners like me always call ourselves asset-rich, income-poor.
For class in Britain during this time, it really changed what it meant. Originally, middle class and merchant class, it was kind of like an interchangeable term. But as time would pass, there would be more distinctions between like what level of middle class you are. The new Industrial Revolution created new jobs, new types of jobs, managerial jobs, lawyers, doctors, these kind of more professional roles that weren't quite as high earning as being like an industrialist, but certainly certainly separated you from being a manual worker. And so bear in mind that in the UK, education wasn't free until 1891. This more defined middle class started to form where families that had some money could send their kids to school and they would become the bankers, the lawyers, the managers, etc. During the Industrial Revolution, the middle class really became a force in British society, leading us to the 1832 Reform Act, where the middle class really cemented its power as they were able to expand the rules on who could vote. No longer was Parliament completely ruled by aristocracy.
I have got innate breeding, but I have not got any money. So sometimes I look up to him. I still look up to him, because although I have money, I am vulgar.
The three main classes in Great Britain, which is the upper class, middle class, and working class, they have three very different belief sets and three very different ways of living.
And then you shook hands with Neville Chamberlain, just how do you do? And then Lord Londonderry would be very nice too, and say, oh, hello.
You have got to come out and fight you and your three brothers. Four brothers here, one to fight for you.
On a very surface level, we can look at things like accents.
Understand a word.
The working class will have very regional accents, like very thick accents.
I've got grandchildren today, I'm afraid to talk to them because they're so posh here. Hello, grandfather, how are you?
Then obviously you'd have the Manchester accent, Liverpool accent, and then the ones that no one understands, which is Welsh, Irish, and Scottish.
For some of our colleagues who have a disability.
Sorry, it must be something to do with my antiquity and background. Could you please repeat the question, because I didn't follow it.
But like the historic stereotype of a working class person would go as follows. They would work in low pay manual jobs. Their behaviour is maybe a little less proper.
He's having a fucking laugh.
You know, they might spend their free time in pubs, drinking beer with the boys, watching footy. Probably they're living in tightly packed urban environments.
Y'all, they're having a great time. This is like Titanic. The rich people up top are all uptight, boring. The party's down below. The party's in the hall with the poor people and the workers. Getting down sweaty, dancing.
Maybe limited education. Importantly, they would rent accommodation, probably shit accommodation. They would never really own it. They didn't have enough money to buy a property. So this, very importantly, meant they never had any economic stability. If they got fired or got ill, or maybe their landlord just didn't like them, they had no power in those situations. If they were kicked to the curb, their life was fucked. And so when it came to the attitude of the working class, it was very much defined by survival. To be honest, Barry, I'm just trying to get by, mate. But then you have the middle class.
There's a slice of pomegranate in there as well.
No, darling, it's not pomegranate. What do you actually think it is? Give another guess.
It's grapefruit.
Yes, there we go.
I don't know my fruit.
Typically, these boys worked in more sort of expertise jobs. They're managers, they're doctors, they're lawyers. They come from good education, they speak in quite a clear, you can maybe hear some regional accent, but it's probably more neutral than the working class. If they go to a pub, it's probably more of a middle class, cozy country pub. Very importantly, they own property. They're not renting and they're probably living in more suburban, rural areas. And so the middle class have a degree of economic stability. And so this affects their attitude to life. They're aspirational. They deeply believe in meritocracy. If I just work hard and if I show my talents, life will reward me.
That's what Americans believe. Yo, this is making me sad. I feel sad. I don't understand why, though. I don't know why. What's wrong, buddy? What's wrong? I don't know. I gotta pee. While I was peeing, I had some thoughts. I think I'm in a post-election funk. And then I had that dream. And now this is like making me angry. And sad and downtrodden. I don't want to do it anymore. I don't want to watch the rest of it. I don't want to do it. I have cried twice this morning. Maybe that's it. I was thinking about my dead dog. I think that's what it was, too. He passed away 3 years ago, and I'm still not over it, yo. Maybe it's because I'm poor, too. Maybe that's
meritocracy.
Why.
If I just work hard and if I show my talents, life will reward me.
Maybe.
Thomas Richard John Long Challoner, 3rd Baron Gisborough, age 41, went from Eton to the Welsh Guards. The Challoner family goes back to the 12th century.
But then you have the upper class. Their accent is ridiculous. It sounds probably like this. Typically their accent doesn't have any regional twang to it. It's just this kind of made-up accent. Very importantly, They don't work.
Really?
No worky for me. I'll just put my money into some industry and hope that Damien knows what he's doing with it.
Genuinely think you are sitting on a gold mine. I really do. I don't say that lightly.
We are
missing
not
the point. Those
competing
those
with
gardens.
a hotel.
I know.
We are not a fucking hotel.
I know.
It's not strictly true that they didn't work. I'm kind of playing. They were in politics most often, and they're considered like the ruling class. They make the laws. They will, of course, own manor houses, vast estates of land. Their behavior is very formal, very reserved. They'll do lessons in like decorum and elocution, I think is the word. God, I'm a peasant. They'll literally care about what angle a fork is on a table because that
Oh my
is very
God.
important, obviously.
Shoot
the
me in the
aristocrats
face.
will go to elite schools. I'm talking like Eton, Oxford, Cambridge. Most interesting to me is their attitude. Their attitudes historically was not meritocracy. It was aristocracy. It was the belief in a birthright. I am just sick because I have fucking clean blood in me. That's why all these marriages between the aristocrats were so important, and you'll see it in every period drama because they wanted to keep their bloodlines pure. I don't really know what that means, but it sounds Hitler.
He's inbred. Voldemort. Why the nose is gone.
Come on, crack those atoms. You, turn out those pockets.
As time had passed, the merchant class just kept getting bigger and bigger because they were actually making money, in many situations outpacing aristocracy. But despite these merchants' humble beginnings, despite the fact that they were once upon a time one of the boys, they basically turned their back on the peasants and just absolutely fucked them over. Awful working conditions, low pay, little advocacy for their right to vote. And this wasn't just happening in Britain, this was happening all across Europe. And so something started to happen. In the same way that the middle class, the merchants, they gained power through collective bargaining of the guilds, the working class made their own cool, fun collective of bros. And
What did that say now? Guilds helped the merchant class gain power during the medieval period. We're still in the medieval period? This is important because before this, only aristocrats and nobles had political power. As guilds grew in importance and took over as political class, they began to exercise some power over nobles. Okay.
The guilds, the working class made their own cool, fun collective of bros, and that would be called workers' unions. Originally, they just set out to sort of argue for better pay, better working conditions, and eventually they kind of led bloody revolutions all around Europe. Where either they would literally kill off the aristocrats like they did in France, or if
Do
it
it
failed
again.
in killing them like in Germany and Austria, in order to appease these kind of enraged working class people, slowly the aristocratic classes would sort of lose their power. But you see, whilst all this madness was going on, Britain took a different approach. Britain never had some bloody revolution. We didn't decapitate any kings or queens. We did something very different.
Maybe
So what
you could
Britain did
rethink that
specifically
now.
to its aristocrats was basically we nerfed them. A series of laws throughout the 1900s took away the aristocratic powers. Originally, they would have a seat in the House of Lords just by the fact that their dad did. And so we'd get the Parliament Act in 1911, all the way up until the House of Lords Act in 1999. Literally, 1999. They still technically had power up until then. And this basically removed the automatic right for the aristocracy to sit in the House of Lords. And also we can look at our monarchy and the way that changed. All of the royal power now in 2024 is symbolic. It's a symbol of tradition. Like, for instance, the Prime Minister has to ask the King if he can lead the country, and the King has to say yes. Or, I don't know. What does happen if he doesn't say yes?
Yeah, that's a good question. Let's look it up. This is sad. What does Cora have to say? Theoretically, yes, but the last monarch to do so was William IV in 1834. He chose the Tory Robert Peel over the Whig Lord Melbourne, who actually had the majority in the Commons. Fascinating.
So, throughout the 20th century, through things like inheritance tax and changes to land ownership laws, basically, the sit back and chill lives of the aristocrats slowly started to come to an end. Still, aristocrats exist, but it's just far fewer, and they have to actually, kind of earn their money. And many aristocrats exist, but it's just far.
As such, Grosvenor is one of the wealthiest men in Britain. In 2023, Bloomberg estimated that he had a net worth of approximately £9.42 billion. I'm so envious. This makes me sad. He ranked 11th on the 2023 Sunday Times Rich list with an estimated fortune of 9. Blah, 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 blah. 7th Duke of Westminster. I don't like this man. Hey, Duke, you're hogging it. That's what it is. Like, that's so much money. You could help so many people. Figure out how much you need each month. Figure out how much you need to put into a trust so that you can take out that much each month and use the rest to help people. Right? And I'm not just talking about helping people by doing some tax-deductible charity help people. Feed people. Give people jobs. You Duke Dick. I would like to submit a law to the British Parliament, however the that works, to change the term Duke to Dick. He's the Dick of Westminster. I'm angry, y'all. This makes me so angry and sad. I thought this was going to be a funny video. There are funny parts, but it's just making me depressed. I'm gonna have to edit all this out. I don't want to finish this video. I want to walk away. I don't want to do it anymore. I don't want to do it anymore. Hey, but I got it a lot better than most people. A lot better. And I'm scraping by. This is hogging it. And then that other Francois, whatever the his name, finally he's going broke. But he's talking about shooting working class people. And now Donald Trump is our president. I don't want to do it anymore. I don't want to do it anymore. Time out. Time the out. Time out. Go back to like high school or third grade or something fun. Can I do that? Can I time out? Can we just end it all here? Would that be better? I mean, Putin's gonna nuke us all, right? Putin killing people. Okay. 7 minutes left. We can do this. I apologize for feeling negative, but that's my genuine reaction to this. Okay.
Far fewer, and they have to actually, kind of earn their money. And many of the very large, historically important estates are now in the hands of a charity. The National Trust, I think there's a few others. And so all of this leaves Britain in a very weird and particular scenario. Because we never consciously destroyed the class system like many other European nations did, social class still exists in this very strange way in Britain where, quite literally, it makes zero sense.
What class are you? I think it is for others to do. I'm a man of Somerset.
I mean, I would say, this will probably hurt you, I would say sort of upper middle rather than upper.
Well, I'm certainly not part of the aristocracy. That's definitely true.
So we'll settle for upper middle?
I'm a man of the people. Vox populi, vox dei.
What I mean
People
by that
talk
is,
about that?
take David
Hang
Beckham
on.
as an example.
Is that like, do people talk about their class? What class are you in? Oh, I'm in the upper middle class. Oh, what class are you? Oh, I'm working class. I'm working class. Like, I'm hoping that was just for the cameras, right? I'm hoping.
Populi, vox dei.
What I mean by that is, take David Beckham as an example. The boy is worth more than 400 million. He's culturally important. He's even got a royal title of OBE. But yet, David Beckham is working class. He's always going to be working class. It is no way, no amount of money, nothing will stop David being a working class boy.
Good. Very working class.
Be honest.
Because
what did you get your dad to drive?
it depends.
No.
She's posh spice. She's not working class.
But then let's say Rishi Sunak, who's worth 700 million, not that much more than David Beckham, he's the Prime Minister of England. But due to the fact that he is kind of like a self-made man in a way, he didn't just inherit his position like aristocrats do. Rishi Sunak has no titles, no inherited social standing. He doesn't talk in the royal regal accent, he just talks in a well-spoken accent. So technically, Rishi Sunak is upper middle class. Class really makes very little sense here, and it makes less sense every single day as the world changes. One example would be like manual workers. Manual working class people, like a builder type of thing, they can be very wealthy now. They can make more money than a lot of white collar jobs. And so you can have working class Steve, and he's earning 80 grand a year as a manual worker, owns a house, owns a car, is married, has kids. But in social terms, he could be considered working class, where you might have a Michael working an office job, he pays rent, he makes 30 grand a year, but he is considered middle class. So I mean, you try and explain it to me, because I'm lost.
It doesn't make sense. Yeah.
But the architecture of that very different era could be hiding behind its doors the risk of Britain slipping back to a time of two nations, that Victorian age gap between mainstream society and an impoverished underclass. Not some tiny minority either, but more than 13 million people.
The reason that social class is so much harder to kind of define now is because of after World War II, where social mobility was more flexible than it had ever been. But all
Wait, what did you say? Hang on.
is because of after World War II, where
After World War II, the middle class grew steadily, says David Kynaston, author of Modernity. The fault lines were pretty clear-cut between workers in heavy industry and employees in offices. A clerk might earn less than a skilled worker, but he would cling on to his middle-class status. There's more to it than money. It's power, connections, networking, luxuries, power and fame. Go a long way. I'm cheering up.
social mobility was more flexible than it had ever been. But all this history now leaves these strange impacts on the way that the general British public thinks about things.
But now I just feel like some people are having benefits as a lifestyle's choice. And I was reading an article about an Afghan family that come over. The woman now has another child on the way, so that will be 12. The man is working, but only as a delivery driver.
Look, at the moment, 40% of claimants of universal credit are in work. The bigger question is not why people should or should not be getting benefits, but why work doesn't pay enough so that the state has to supplement employers.
Yes, 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 thank you, lady. Thank you, ma'am. I just reacted to a video about tipping culture in America. And basically tips at restaurants are expected because restaurants pay servers crap. We're going in the wrong direction. I'm so sad. I'm so sad. Oh man, this sucks. Why can't we all be kind of rich? Right? Or just, I just wish we all just had enough, you know? It's so sad. Oh, Downton Abbey bitches.
If we take from the aristocratic era the idea of born privilege, birthright, they considered poor people, the working class, the peasants, they were just inherently bad.
What does it say? In the 17th century, the poor were in need of moral reform. They led a life of sin, which caused their state of poverty. Fixing this required charity for all while reforming their morals through spirituality. Once the poor were cleansed of their sins, they could help themselves. That's kind of flip-flopped, hasn't it?
Considered poor people, the working class, the peasants, they were just inherently bad. The merchant industrial era challenged this way of thinking. It brought in the ideas of meritocracy, the idea that every man is equal and we all have equal rights to go and make something of our own lives.
The difference between the deserving and the undeserving poor was established in the Poor Law of 1834. The deserving poor were those understood to be hardworking people who through no fault of their own found themselves in hardship. That's most. The key word here is that they were hardworking and so deserved state help. Yeah.
These two attitudes, in my opinion, have left a passive belief amongst lots of the British public where quietly they see poverty or people of the lower class as being like just a bit lazy or work shy. They're unmotivated.
Some of them are, but most of them
being poor is sort of their fault.
Suella Braverman has floated the idea of limiting the use of tents by homeless people and described life on the streets as a lifestyle choice on social media.
But the problem with this way of thinking is it just doesn't...
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
As a
The British people are compassionate. We will always support those who are genuinely homeless, but we cannot allow our streets to be taken over by rows of tents occupied by people, many of them from abroad, living on the streets as a lifestyle choice.
Lifestyle choice on social media.
But the problem with this way of thinking is it just doesn't account for how different the world is right now than it was 50 or so years ago. For a good period post-war, there was a lot of opportunity for social mobility. And so meritocracy did exist. If you worked hard, you probably could elevate your life. And that's because, equivalent to the amount of money you would make, the world was significantly cheaper. There was...
What did that say?
Life. And that's because...
1950s. Income per year, £8,000, 896. House price, £2,000. Gold per ounce, £22. Hours worked to buy a home, 399. Ounces gold to buy a home, 89. Number of years working to buy a home, 0.22 years? Yo. Oh my god. It's not fair. I don't know what to say. I'm just sad. This just makes me sad. The state of the world makes me sad.
Was equivalent to the amount of money you would make, the world was significantly cheaper. There was tons of support for the working class, you know, social housing, welfare state, cheaper education. And so there was more social mobility and there was an opportunity for meritocracy to thrive. But things are very different for the younger generation now. And I think slowly people are starting to realize it as they see that the British middle class and many middle classes all around the world are shrinking. As they see
Young adult home ownership rates collapsed far more steeply in the UK than other developed countries. Percentage point change in home ownership rates since 1990 among 25 to 34s. Wow. The US has gone down too, and I've noticed that. I don't own a home, and there's no way I could. Actually, there's no way I could own a place. But UK is even lower. Oh my God. Oh my God. Wow.
that the British middle class and many middle classes all around the world are shrinking.
I've made millions of pounds betting that the average British family will collapse into poverty. Desperate poverty. I'm talking about Charles Dickens, Oliver Twist. That is the future of this country if we don't deal with growing inequality. That is what I see. We've seen government debt explode. We've seen living standards collapse for ordinary working people. At the same time, the biggest and fastest ever increase in the wealth of millionaires and billionaires.
Nowadays, we live in this era where the ruling class isn't the aristocracy. It's more middle upper class people. This class built their lives on hard work. They were raised in private elite schools. They worked hard in their lives and achieved good things in their profession. My hat goes off to them. So in their lives, meritocracy does exist. But this is where the disconnect happens, and I think you can see it in this clip.
Hi, I'm Rishi. What's your name? Steve. What do you have? Do you work in a business? Do you want some fruit?
I'm homeless. I'm actually a homeless person.
The truth is, there is always exceptional people who can kind of come out of the worst scenarios and achieve tons. But for every one Alan Sugar you have thousands. I think how many thousands you have of people who just do what everyone else does in their scenario. Most people.
What's that say? Sugar's paternal grandmother, Sarah Sugar, was born in London to Polish parents. When Sugar was young, his family lived in a council flat. Because of his profuse curly hair, he was nicknamed Mophead, a name that still goes by in the present day. Okay.
You have thousands. I think how many thousands you have of people who just do what everyone else does in their scenario. Most people aren't exceptional.
Wait,
most people.
Who is Alan Sugar? Y'all, did he invent sugar? British business magnate, media personality, author, politician, and political advisor. Okay. Oh, he's the Celebrity Apprentice, Australia. Okay. He's in the House of Lords. He became a billionaire in 2015. Buy me a coffee, Alan.
Are normal. And most people don't thrive worrying about whether they can put food on the table, afford heating, afford rent. And so
what is this chart? What money could buy back in? Oh, all prices inflation adjusted to 2023 pounds. 1970 median wage, 13,000 pounds. Wow. So from 1970 to 2023, the median wage has gone up by 20,000 pounds. But the average house price has gone up by over 200,000 pounds. Yeah. How are you supposed to buy a home?
people don't thrive worrying about whether they can put food on the table, afford heating, afford rent. And so lots of people at the bottom are forced into like a survival mode. Survival mode, for most people, isn't the best conditions to come up with some cool business idea on a banana cooler that you can control with an app on your phone. And so sometimes where class gets so divided, you even create what some people call an underclass. These are the people that don't work at all. And often this can become more criminal, more violent, etc. And that really isn't very good for anyone. So when I finally think about what do I think class will look like in the future, I do think we're in this kind of make or break position where I think class divides could get far worse. Far more problems, far more criminality. And perhaps we might have this like arbitrary symbolic middle class based on things like what their accent is. But I think as that gap gets worse and worse, we're going to see the living standards of people who aren't ultra wealthy becoming more and more similar. And I can't see it getting better unless something changes. I'll be really excited to hear your opinion on this on my Discord. Come join that, links in the description. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.
Damn, y'all. Be sure to go to Jimmy the Giant and like and subscribe. This makes me so sad and angry. It makes me want to take to the streets. But not even. I'm like deflated. This is... the whole underclass, that underclass thing is making me think of... I don't want to get political, y'all, but I'm going to a little bit. One of the things that Kamala Harris was offering was a $25,000 tax credit for people starting a new business. Sounded like a great deal. Seems generous to me. Like, awesome. That's a great thing. That would help the economy. It would help people start businesses, and it's a nice break from taxes. But really, I think most people wouldn't have taken her up on that because eggs are expensive. Like, people are just trying to buy groceries. People are just trying to feed their kids. They're not even thinking about starting a business. You know? Like he said, they're in survival mode. There's a lot more I want to say about Donald Trump, but I'm holding back. But I'm very sad about it. Ay, ay, ay. Y'all, if you are underclass British person, a working class British person, a middle class British person, I don't even know all the classes. If you're poor, my heart goes out to you. I feel like I am poor, even though I'm not. I have a home. I have an apartment. I'm not living in a tent. When I want to eat food, I can eat food, even if it's potatoes, you know? Like, I'm not going to go hungry. But these motherfuckers with all the money. Come on, y'all. I'm sure there are some aristocratic British people watching this right now. Everyone's saying that the aristocrats love this reaction channel. Everyone's saying it. It's what I've heard. Everyone's saying it. That's what they're saying. Make a donation to your local food bank. You know? Like, don't buy me a coffee. Don't sign up for my Patreon. I'm going to be fine. Make a donation to your local food bank. It's easier than ever. Just go on their website. Click, click, click. £5, 10 pounds, 20 pounds, £1. Just do it. Just do it, y'all. Please. Something's got to change. So if you don't start donating to your local food bank, guess what? Those underclass people are going to come to your mansion and take their food. They're going to drink your milkshake, right? And guess what? We'll all cheer for them. We will all celebrate that they drank your milkshake. This is a very negative video. I apologize. I don't like to put out negative stuff, but I'm sad and angry. I'm over it. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to try anymore. I want to lay in bed. I want to lay on my floor. I want to go as low to the ground as I can and just lay down. I'm sad. I don't know what else to say. This sucks. Chin up. Carry on. Chin up. Be sure to go to Jimmy the Giant, like and subscribe, y'all. Thank y'all for watching this with me. Thank you so much to my patrons. Thank you, guys. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you to my Buy Me a Coffee folks. Thank you for buying me this coffee that I've already drunk. It was delicious. Thank y'all for watching this with me. Trump. Later.